Thanks for joining us. I'm Margot Knack, Strategic Business Developer at Adobe, and with me tonight are two editors from the show Atlanta, whose behind-the-scenes video you just saw. This is Kyle Reiter. Hi, Kyle.
Hi.
And this is Isaac Hagy.
Hi.
How are you guys doing? I know now we're all like formal and stiff. We've been goofing around for the past few minutes. So I'm going to be looking at my phone during our chat because I'm going to be taking questions from you guys on the live stream. Not because you're horribly boring, but because I'll be getting questions.
Both can be true.
Yeah.
But I'm being nice.
Okay.
So on we go. So I'm going to start with you, Isaac. So maybe give us a little background of how you know Hero, how you got involved with cutting for Atlanta.
I met Hero the very first day of film school.
Wow.
He lived right across the dorm, right across the hall from me at USC in the dorms. And I think the very first thing I said to him, he's going to hate me for telling this story. Yeah, I'm going to tell it anyway. So we met in the hall, like the very first day. We'd all moved in our crap and stuff. And he goes, "Oh, hey, I'm Hero." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Isaac." I'm like, "Hero, like Hiroshima."
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I know, it was terrible. It was the worst thing I could have said, and we've been friends ever since.
Wow.
And so we just started, we started working on music videos together, and kind of short films, and it's just been a collaboration.
Okay,
ever since.
and so now, did you know each other
No.
before you started working on Atlanta? How did you get onto the Atlanta team?
I had cut a show for FX prior to Atlanta,
Okay.
and our post supervisor, Caitlin, was doing Atlanta from that.
Got
and
it.
We became friends and liked working with one another, and so they needed another editor, and I had a really awkward phone call with Hero, and then I got hired, and I was
So
like, oh,
you
okay.
were perfect for the job.
Yeah, it was
Cool.
great. I mean, I didn't say anything, that crazy.
Not
but-
offensive. But
Right.
no, but the story Caitlin tells is that this is the way Caitlin pitches people. She'll have like 4 editors she's pitching, and she'll be like, "Okay, here's the first guy, here's the second guy, here's the third girl. Here's Kyle. You have to go with him." So she
really
kind
subtle.
of,
So we should mention Caitlin is the co-producer and post-production supervisor for Atlanta.
Right.
Hero is Hiro Murai, the director, who he and Donald Glover came up with the idea for this show, right? And then they shot a pilot. You guys were not on. You didn't cut the pilot.
They had made a short film together.
Oh.
Did you cut that?
I did.
They
cut
made
the
a short
yeah.
film, like a 20-minute short film
okay.
that he had done, and then I think that's kind of how.
It was the short film was called "Clapping for the Wrong Reasons," and it was part of Donald's album rollout like 2 years ago, I think. And it was kind of an aesthetic forebearer to Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah,
right?
there's some similarities.
Yeah, it's
for
very
sure.
kind of
Did
slow,
Christian shoot
tonal.
No.
No.
It looks and feels
Yeah.
Kind
the
of like
same.
Atlanta
Yeah.
does.
So I think that was sort of their, hey, we could
Yeah.
do this, but it'd
But,
be
yeah.
about.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was kind of the aesthetic forebearer to it. But I mean, a lot of Atlanta is based on Donald and his brother Steven's experience growing up
Right.
in Atlanta.
So when you all join the team, you're picked as editors, and you have some assistant editors that you're working with. How did you sort of pick up on the tone and the style that you're going to be using for this show? Did you have kind of like long conversations with Hero and or Donald? Like how did the style come
Yeah.
about?
I mean, for me and Hero in particular, I think we developed kind of a shorthand from years of working
Right.
together. It was a lot of like,
Yeah.
even in music videos, we kind of tended to work against type pacing-wise and style-wise. Like a lot of our music videos were more slow, long cuts, tonal kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
pieces. And the short film too, the clapping for the wrong reasons. So I think that translated into the show.
Yeah, and
a
then
little bit.
what about you? Like, was it just
Yeah,
an easy thing for you to pick
I
up?
was just thinking about that. No, yeah, of course. I mean, you sort of get it from the footage, but I think I would be mortified to go back and see my initial cuts of
Yeah.
like the first week. Like the only thing I remember Hero emailing me from Atlanta when they were shooting, and I think he just said like, it's okay if it's just in a wide shot. Like it was some version of
Yeah.
that, and I was like, what does that mean? And it was. So I would hate to go see that stuff. This is probably.
I know, like no one
awful.
wants to go back and look at
Oh
sort of
boy,
where they
especially when
started.
you're on a show that's this specific tonally, and
Yeah.
it's not something that's very common to come in
It's-
and have to like figure that out. It's probably just.
It's a very atypical show, right?
Yeah.
It's the pacing is different, and the way the characters interact and the way they're portrayed is very different. It's it reminded me a little bit of Slacker in that you're like following people around a little bit, and it's sort of like real-time pacing, and there's a lot of sort of awkward pauses and kind of long moments that are not like in your typical sitcom or whatever.
I think a lot of that comes from the fact that a lot of the show is texture and mood more than it is plot and that sort of thing. So you can get away with sort of sitting with stuff because that's sort of the point.
I'm glad you said that. That totally makes sense. So speaking of time, so how long do you actually get to sit with the footage for an episode? Like, how long is your window of actually cutting the episode?
Like 5, 6 days, 7
5
days. Yeah, for our first cut, it's about 5 to 6 days.
Yeah.
I always try to like squeeze an extra day or two out of what they tell us.
But that's pretty fast. I mean,
I mean, they shoot them in 4.5 days each episode.
And then they drop all the assets to you, and then you start cutting.
They shoot in Atlanta. We cut here in LA, so we're getting stuff uploaded overnight. So we're seeing the previous day's dailies when we come in. So we just start piecing it together. And so by the time they're done shooting, our cuts are done a day or two after that.
Oh wow, wow, which is super rapid. So, and you guys are cutting on Premiere for this show.
That's right.
How did you make that decision? Was that like a group discussion? Was it just an assumption?
I think that was a lot of me, actually.
I think they had determined that when I got hired, which is great, and I'm happy.
No, it was a combination of things. I mean, for one, this was the very first TV show I had ever done. And I had been using Premiere on short form projects, like music videos, up until that point. And to do like my first TV show on a whole new platform that I didn't understand would have drove my neurosis insane. So I kind of requested Premiere on it, and everyone was really
and you were like, great.
Oh, yeah. Because the show that I had cut prior actually was the show that I learned Premiere on.
Oh, okay.
So I was up to speed, and so when they said it's Premiere, I said, great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. And so kind of contrary to Isaac, you did not go to film school. You kind of did your own thing, and you taught yourself how to edit.
I got involved with a monthly film festival thing where people were making 5-minute shorts. You had a month to do it, and then they would screen in front of an audience. So it was sort of a trial by fire of, making stuff that you think is really great and then totally bombs, and you so you figure out how to. But it's a really good way to learn how to shoot coverage and how to put things together and how to cut stuff quickly and what works and what doesn't. So I did that. It was called Channel 101 is the name of it, and I did that for a couple years and just got better and better at it. And I made some things that real people saw and said, "Hey, we have money. Do you want to do this?" And then those jobs got bigger and better.
Yeah, and here you are, and now you're on TV shows.
I'm in the suite of a Hollywood hotel.
That's right. The suite.
It doesn't get any better than this, right?
Were you directing those too?
It was. It's sort of you make your own thing, so you have to write.
So you're directing, editing.
So I'm writing it. I'm calling friends, going, "Are you free this Saturday?" Then we get there. You direct it. You figure out. Again, when you go watch a lot of it's pretty embarrassing now, but
I'm gonna go watch all of them.
No, I want to watch all your film school stuff because it's probably horrible, right?
No, Hero and I used to do like 24-hour film festivals.
Yeah, and it's probably just like
they are. Yeah, I haven't seen them for a while, but
I would never. I can't go watch that stuff.
So because you got to deliver pretty quickly for your episodes, and because you've worked with Hero, and this is your second season of working together as an editorial team, I imagine you get kind of a rhythm, and you're delivering your first cut, and Hero's screening them and giving you feedback. Is there anything that you guys do in particular to kind of like speed up the process? Are there any like tricks or anything that you do that kind of gets you to your first cut faster?
I'll say this. We should preface this by saying the coverage that we get is pretty extraordinary, and that not only do they not do a lot of takes, but they have things, their coverage is such that you could kind of play the scene in any setup that you wanted in its entirety. So a lot of the cutting we do is, I mean, obviously it's the typical, performance and pace and that sort of thing, but we don't spend a lot of time fixing problems. And we don't spend a lot of time looking at
that's nice.
the takes. It's
like what you get is
you
really
look at it and go,
tight and it's good, and
everybody
if anything, it's like sometimes an embarrassment of riches with the acting, especially.
It's
like, oh man, that's what makes it hard.
It's like which great take.
When you have guys like Brian Henry, who is like the guy in 2 seasons has not. There is not a single bad take in any of the footage.
Wow.
And some of them are wildly different too.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's
he'll
the thing.
play
He's not
different
just that
ways,
he's good.
and it's
He's
like-
good in like
A million
taking big
different
swings.
takes.
That's when you start to go, oh god, this is my ball to drop. You know, and that's
Exactly,
what
yeah.
makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a minute about like sort of the creative license or freedom that you
Yeah.
guys have, because I mean, it's not like you're on the phone all the time, like
not
while
at all.
you're making your first cut, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of. You can read it any way you want, and you can
Yeah.
take what you see as the best.
For sure,
So
Well, I think it's funny. I think one of the things that Donald and Hero really like is to be surprised.
Oh.
More than anything, like they really
yeah.
like to be like. I mean, we take swings in the editing room. Like I think everyone kind of does.
Yeah.
We had this thing like we would just call them choices.
A lot of choices.
Yeah, a lot of choices.
We'd call Hero and go, well, okay, how's this scene come out? It's pretty good. I made some choices.
choices.
And then he just laughed because he
Yeah.
knows what that means. It means
Yeah.
that he's going to see something that he did not expect to see.
Okay.
And
very-
sometimes it works.
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes
yeah.
he goes. Sometimes
when,
he'll see it and go, oh my god,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, and sometimes he'll go.
There's some batshit crazy choices that have ended up.
Yeah, sometimes he'll go.
yeah.
And then like a lot of them are like, I'm glad you tried that. But,
Yeah, so
you know.
No, it's really collaborative though. Is that what you're asking?
And it's very
Like,
freeing too. Like
Well,
yeah, we feel very free.
well, so there's kind of two parts of it. One is I feel like you guys are pretty collaborative, right? Like, so you edit in the trap house, which we
Right,
saw in the video,
right.
and you're all you're close together, and you're not in like closed off rooms all the time. So
Right,
I'm imagining like you're like, hey,
Oh,
Isaac,
yeah.
can you come check this out, or what
Yeah.
do you think of
Totally.
this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I imagine there's a lot of back and forth.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we were literally
Yeah.
across the hall from each other. So we'd say,
Yeah.
hey, come here and look at this scene.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Is this tracking? That
Yeah.
sort of thing.
And not just us, like would bring in
Oh, with
Caitlin
anyone,
or
yeah,
the AEs
anyone.
or
Right.
I was a-
Marissa and Jen who are part of our production, like post-production stuff.
Yeah. So that was one part, was the collaboration, but the other was kind of more along what you were getting at, which is
Yeah.
like how experimental can you be?
Yeah.
And it sounds like
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
darn
Especially
Yeah, oh,
especially the second season. I
Yeah.
think we've been real
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, so yeah, as you got into
Yeah.
the rhythm of season 2 versus season
Right.
1, where you're like brand new and you're kind of
Yeah.
figuring out the language of
Right.
the show,
Yeah, exactly.
you can take more
Yeah.
swings.
And
is what
Atlanta
you're saying.
kind of lends itself to that too, because
Yeah.
the show can kind of be almost anything it wants.
Yeah.
At certain points.
Oh
Like,
yeah, some of the episodes are just so wildly
Yeah.
different
Right.
from each other, and you don't. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch the series. You should watch the series, but you could watch unique.
definitely
I
watch
know
it.
I broke the fourth wall. You could watch individual episodes because they
Right.
do stand
Yeah.
on their
Right,
own,
right.
Yeah.
and like you kind of don't need a lot of preamble
Right.
because they're just weird.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
But the language of it's very freeing. Like it,
Yeah.
Yeah, especially this season 2 where things feel sort of modular. I feel like we can really get away with, you know, people like the show. They know what the show is. Now we can just really kind of, you know, unhook the boat. from
Yeah,
it.
they understand the relationships between the characters,
Right.
and you could spend an episode or a couple episodes just on like one
Yeah,
guy.
I mean, I think
Yeah, we
this
do.
season, I don't even
Yeah.
think there's a stretch of episodes this season where
Donald
Donald's
was
character
gone.
doesn't
Yeah,
even
no
show up. and
yeah.
it's-
Yeah,
that's, you know.
I know. It was like, wow, he hasn't been in this whole
Right.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it
So-
totally works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this
I hope so.
episode.
Yeah.
It totally works. So this season was called Robin season. There's like there's this theme to the whole season. Do you guys keep kind of like touching back on that as you're editing and you're thinking about sort of the thrust of each episode? Does it guide you at all?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the idea of Robin season does in particular. I would say this season has a more of a darkness to it than the
Yeah.
previous season. There's like there's a heaviness to the tone.
And
Yeah.
is the heaviness? Does that come to you just like in the raw footage, so you kind of know when you get it
does to
where
a certain
it's going
extent,
to
but
go?
I think we
Yeah.
lean into it also.
Yeah,
I think
I-
we definitely.
I think
play
our
it up.
choices with a lot of music and sound
sounds,
design and
especially
that,
the
like
sound,
sort of
yeah.
keeping it oppressive. I mean, it's definitely in the footage, it's in the writing, it's in that. But yeah, I mean, I think we consciously think of like, you know, sort of playing down the brightness
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
way things feel. Yeah.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about some of that,
Sure,
like the
yeah.
sound design
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
music.
That's
'cause-
a big
Yeah.
component.
yeah.
Part of
So maybe talk about more like the non-obvious aspects of sound design. Like, how do you make something feel oppressive when it isn't a musical choice? It's not
Mm-hmm.
a needle drop. It's whatever it is, background noise or
Mm-hmm.
street noise or other things going on.
Oh no, he cut the the Woods episode.
Yeah, the Woods
which is
was
just
that
I
was
think
a fun
really
one.
phenomenal sound design
Yeah.
and sound choices, and that's a lot of stuff. A lot of choices we make in the offline winds up in the final cut. But we also have Trevor, our who sound designs it, and Diego who mixes it.
Oh,
Just
okay.
they've done a lot of stuff. They did
They
Get
did
Out.
which
Oh,
is-
okay.
Those
Oh,
guys
wow.
are really they know what
Yeah.
they're doing.
Yeah.
So like but I
But
think
it
that
really is like, and I mean, because we don't have a conventional like score on the show, we don't have a composer.
Right.
Like we
Right.
kind of treat the sound a lot like as a score, the sound and the music. But like, I mean, on the Woods, for example, I think I used like 20 different type of winds that I would
Oh,
kind of
wow.
like weave
Yeah,
in and
yeah.
out for like depending on how scary or comforting or off-putting the moment should be.
yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's things as specific as
it's-
like traffic noise and car buys,
Yeah.
sort of using them climactically. It's things that I don't think people would really
yeah,
notice.
that you
but-
wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
pick up on, like, oh, they put a car
Right,
in
but we
there.
do
Right,
that
but
because
ideally
we
you
don't
feel it, though,
Yeah,
you know, it's
exactly.
like-
We- I
Yeah.
mean, because we
It's all
don't have music to sort of do that for
Yeah.
us. That a lot of that is.
And so during the edit, are you guys sort of like temping that stuff
Oh
in
yeah,
so that by the
we
time?
spend, we
Yeah.
spend tons of time on sound.
And are you doing that in Premiere? Are you doing it in Audition? Like, where are you kind
We
of?
do it in Premiere, I think,
Yeah, mostly,
just
yeah.
because that's more that,
You're
that
in
speaks
there.
more to our limited capabilities
Yeah,
as editors
exactly. Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah.
But it gets you where you need to go as
Oh,
far
yeah,
as like,
absolutely, yeah,
then you can
for
turn
sure.
that over to
And you know
your
what though?
music.
And I gotta say, a lot of the stuff when we're mixing it, when we're on the stage, a lot of the stuff is
Yeah.
what we did.
Oh,
Because
cool.
we were able to sort of worldize it in
Yeah.
Premiere.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
I mean, those
they'll-
guys, yeah, they'll take the template of what we did and then kind
Right.
of
Right.
make it
So,
sing.
kind of same question for visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't think of Atlanta as being like some big flashy visual effects
Yeah.
show, but there are effects, right?
Sure,
There's
sure.
like muzzle flashes and certain things.
a lot of phones.
Okay, yeah.
We do a lot of split screens.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly for performance a lot
Yeah,
of the time.
yeah.
Kind of,
So like percentage wise, like what percentage of the show has
It's
I mean,
VFX?
it's
Yeah.
very low. I'd
Yeah.
say. It's probably
Yeah, I mean, it's probably low relative to
Yeah.
most shows,
Yeah.
but it's,
but I think maybe like 8 to 10 shots.
you think,
Yeah.
you think
And
It depends on an
And
episode.
again, so
Episode.
are you guys doing those, or do those get handed off to someone?
we have our
Yeah,
we have our
like, our-
AEs that are
do them,
pretty
yeah.
great with
Yeah.
that stuff.
We have a VFX guy in the show, Eric.
Yeah,
Van
we have
Moller,
a,
who's
yeah.
like
we have a
so-
guy in his house
We have
who
a
does
guy.
all of our VFX.
I remember you guys
Yeah.
talking
he's
about
like,
your guy.
He's like
Yeah.
our secret
Yeah.
weapon.
Yeah.
Don't tell him. Don't say
Yeah,
his name.
because
Because he's like he's better than any house
Yeah.
that ever. Yeah, he just does it himself, and he's
That's
just
really
He's
cool.
just some crazy dude that does all this stuff.
Yeah.
we keep him chained to his
Yeah.
computer.
yeah.
Well, and the effects in the show are, I think of them as kind of like pedestrian effects.
Uh-huh.
It's like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
necessary and they serve a purpose, but they're not
Yeah,
obvious.
it's very natural.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, did you see the Woods episode?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
moment when Paperboy gets into a fight, and there he's kind of jumped by 3 young guys on the street, and there's a train going over in the background. Now that train wasn't there in the takes, it was
Right.
there in like a different take, but not the best take, so it was very much like combining.
Yeah, like a composite.
Yeah.
of-
That's a good
composite.
example of
Yeah,
the sort
that
of
is a good
VFX.
And so that was something that we temped out in the offline, in like the very first editor's cut. It was,
And
and
then-
it was a little loose,
Yeah.
but it worked. It's
And then
yeah.
you'll do the same thing with like a couple actors, right? If you want
Sure.
to optimize, like, oh, he was really
Yeah.
good here.
Yeah.
She
Right.
was really
I wanna
good
get a little,
here.
Yeah.
timing a little closer to each other, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
one actor's
like-
doing something amazing and someone's picking their nose over their shoulder.
Who are you
Not
calling
that
someone
that ever
out?
happens.
No, but like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But it's things like that. They're not very complicated, but they're I'd say important to.
Yeah, they set that tone and
Right.
the texture
Right,
of the show.
right.
So I'm going to ask each of you the same question. I'll start with you. What was either your favorite or most challenging scene to edit, and why this season?
I had a really tough time editing the Barbershop episode. You see that one?
I
When Al was
loved
trying to get
that
a hair. That one was really difficult because there's no B story.
Right.
The whole
it's
whole
about
show
him.
is 2 guys talking.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to cut away to, and there's you
Yeah.
know, so that was a really challenging episode, which was I think it solved itself by I temped music into it, which is something that we don't typically do. I started cutting it with jazz music because I thought one, we sort of need something for the momentum, and 2, it sort of fits Bibby the barber's
Right.
character to be
Right.
sort of frenetic.
Yeah.
And when Donald saw it, he said, "Oh, this is a good idea. The jazz thing's maybe kind of been done." And so he called Thundercat and Flying Lotus to see if they would score it. So that's sort of, I don't want to say the fix, but that's sort of what that episode became.
Yeah.
And that was really, that's what, when Donald is your, runs the show, he can just call Thundercat
Right, and
and
they'll
go,
just do
hey,
it.
will you?
Yeah.
But that was a really difficult episode for that reason.
Yeah, because there was no other story. It's just BB.
It's a scene of two guys yelling at each other,
just
and
trying
then
to
the
get a
next
haircut.
scene is those two guys yelling at each other, and then the next scene is those two guys. So it was just kind of like, it was hard making sense of the rhythm of it.
Yeah. Well, it was a very successful episode. It's one of my favorite ones because it's like, it's so crazy.
I think it's just those guys.
Yeah.
So I mean,
they're really good.
Brian's ability to be annoyed is like some sort of superpower.
Like real sort of like quietly hostile.
Yes. Yeah. So that really helps a lot too when you can lean on a guy who's just he'll
carry
his
it.
reactions are just like literally he carried the episode.
Yeah. What about you, Isaac? What was either your favorite or most challenging?
I would say the most challenging one is probably the third episode, which was like Moneybag Shorty was the name of it. Yeah, and that's an episode that we all kind of we double teamed that one.
Oh,
Like,
That was the only one
we
this year
tackled
that
it
we did
together.
together.
And you were like, I don't know.
Well, it had the
There's a lot of
problem.
stuff.
Yeah, it had the problem and it wasn't a problem, but kind of the same issue as the Bibby episode. There was no B storyline to it. It was all kind of Ern and Van were on a date together, and they were trying to spend a $100 bill that they couldn't spend. And it was a great episode. Like Donald and Zazie together are amazing, no matter what. But the first cut of it ended up being 18 minutes long, which is really short for that show.
Yeah.
And not only that, the episode kind of suffered from having no B plot. It had it didn't feel like anything was happening when we didn't see Ern and Van on screen, so it felt like too small of an episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what did you do?
we-
You kind of like.
This is the only time we've ever done
This is the only time we've ever done that, but we kind of, after watching it all together, we called Hero and Donald and the producer Alex Orr, and we're like, we need to add,
we need more.
You need something.
you
for
need
this
something
episode.
else here.
Yeah.
And so they just, I think probably in like a day or two, wrote the amazing scenes in the episode of Paperboy visiting Clark County in like the recording studio.
Those were added after we
Which are
assembled
all
the
like,
first thing. Oh, and also we should shout out our AEs, Cameron and Ernie.
Yeah.
Cut those scenes.
Cut those two scenes.
Nice. Yeah. I met Ernie. He's awesome.
Yeah. He just cut the This Is America video.
Oh, cool. That's great.
So,
the new Gambizi video.
Yeah, those scenes came out really great.
Really great. Yeah, and they gave like the
Because of-
episode shape and like.
Yeah. Well, so this is actually a really good segue because I wanted to talk a little bit about how you guys work with assistant editors. So, like, how much of kind of the technical, like, heavy lifting do they do?
Yeah.
Like more
So
than
you guys-
100%. We go in there and go,
Because you're split into
Ernie?
teams, right? Like, there's Ernie.
right. Ernie mostly helps me and Cam mostly helps me.
Yeah.
Because we're on a per episode basis, I think
Yeah,
it just helps
you're-
with them finishing more than anything. So we just sort of stick with. Plus, they know where the bodies are buried when we're trying to find stuff.
Yeah. So, like, what do they do that you're glad you don't have to do?
Like, I'm not
Literally
like
everything.
I go in there and go, I did this, and
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. And he'll come in 10 minutes later and go, yeah, okay, I fixed it.
Nice.
Like literally, that's how. Yeah.
Well, I talked to Ernie briefly when we met you, like several months back, and he's like deeply
He knows
experienced
he
with
knows what he's
Premiere. He
talking about.
totally
Oh,
knows
for
what
sure.
he's talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I think a lot of the stuff we do, we kick it over to them and they bring in After Effects and just kick it right back to us.
Yeah.
They'll
It's
give
that
us
simple.
temp VFX. They'll pull some
cool.
music choices for us.
Yeah.
Do you ever get musical choices in advance? Like, does Donald ever come to you and say,
Sometimes
"Hey,
they're scripted.
Yeah.
Some of them are in the
scripted.
script, yeah. And sometimes we use those in the script, and other times we don't.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, that's a really collaborative thing. Between us picking, we'll temp our own
choose a
music
lot
out.
of
Sometimes
stuff.
it sticks. Hero will have ideas. It'll be in the script. We have two really great music supervisors, Fam and Jen, who are constantly throwing ideas at us or
Cool.
finding sort of obscure stuff for us. So it really is.
It's really, it's a
every
team of like
episode is
6 or 7
literally
people.
It's
Yeah.
like I picked that song, he picked that song, Hero picked that song, and that's kind of how it works.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's like a
That's really
collaborative playlist.
Yeah, no, it's really,
it's
it's
fun.
really, really fun.
And like based on just how you guys work together in the house, like the collaboration, the vibe of how you guys work together other is really nice.
Yeah.
Like it's very sort of community based.
Well, for like in fact, episode 9 when they go to Statesboro, Georgia, and after they're driving home, they have the fight in the car. They get out on the highway, they fight. We had a really tough time finding the song to go out on, the credit song for that. And Hero and I tried a bunch of different things, and we actually wound up using a song that you had tried in episode 1 that didn't work.
Oh, but you pulled
So
it back
we
in.
were like, let's try that one. And we were like,
I think
oh,
that
this
came
works.
from Jen too.
I think it was fan. I
Jen
think it was a
sent
fan
over as,
pick.
our
Oh, was it
fan.
Jen?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was one
okay.
of them.
But yeah, so it's
I'd
really
always
it's
loved
to the
that
point
song.
where we're stealing each other's stuff. and
Yeah.
going
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, this worked in here.
Yeah.
So.
So
There's also artists that we want to try using.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm
That's
gonna
just
try
stuff,
this one.
It's just stuff we
Kyle
listen
put
to.
something in, I'm like, oh goddamn, you use Nina Simone.
Yeah, we both. Well, we shouldn't. There's some.
yeah.
People haven't seen the finale yet.
oh yeah. So we should say the finale airs this week.
That's right.
What day does it air this
Thursday.
week?
Thursday,
Yeah. So I'm ready. I've marathoned every episode. I'm ready
It's
for
a great.
the finale.
It's a great finale.
I like it.
I'll say
I
as a
like
guy
the
who has
finale.
nothing to do with it other than just. I think it's great.
So you cut it.
He cut it.
I did cut it.
Anything you want to say about that one? Anything interesting about the finale?
No, not really. It's it's a good episode in that like this season has been so many standalone episodes where it's like
Right.
an Alfred story or a Zazie at a weird Drake party or Keith goes to meet Teddy Perkins.
Teddy Perkins.
Teddy Perkins.
Yeah.
But this is an episode where finally everyone kind of
They
we
converge.
see all
Yeah.
of our people in this episode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it feels good in that way.
It feels it
Like, does it sort of-
it does that in a way that doesn't feel cheap.
Yeah.
Cool.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it feels very. Well, I don't want to say earned.
Wow.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
So
Ben's gonna
Should I
make
just
fun of me
leave?
for that.
yeah, the door's over there.
I'm afraid to look at my phone.
Yeah,
People
your
are
wife
like, what
is
are you
just like,
talking
boy.
about?
So when you guys are obviously you alternate episodes, but it's not necessarily like year 2, 4, and 6, and year 1, 3, and 5. How do you
That's the way it was the first season.
like? Do you
Was it?
guys
I
decide?
think it was more.
Do you guys decide who takes an episode, or
No,
It's mostly Hero.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
Hero. It's Hero, and it's also based on because they don't shoot them in order.
Yeah.
So
Based on scheduling, it's a little bit of
yeah, Hero say, why don't you try doing 6? Because I'm going to be doing 3, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like yeah, and because there were 11 this year, there was the one that we did together.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
that sort of
worked
it just sort
out.
of shakes out in a way.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start taking some questions from the live stream. We're getting a whole bunch of good ones coming in, so they might feel a little random, but people are watching.
good.
So this one's from Josh. How do you both find the balance between the creative and technical aspects of editing, and how do you feel Premiere helps you accomplish this? Because a lot of editing is
Yeah.
really technical.
No, I mean,
true.
it goes back to having amazing assistants
AEs,
on
yeah.
it. Like Cam and Ernie really do a lot of the technical legwork for us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of set up so that when we get in there, we can just
You can
edit
just
and focus
work
on the
on
story
that.
and focus on the.
And if I'm hung up on some technical thing, I know that I have the support to just focus on the creative and and leave the technical to the technician.
And I guess
Yeah.
Premiere's been great for that too. And it's also it's deeper. Like I'm learning things as I go along. Like
Oh,
I'll be like,
cool.
oh, how do I do this? And Ernie or Cam will come in and be like, oh, try this, try that.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was
look
just
at this
gonna
audio.
say,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you guys swap tips or?
No, a lot of it is Ernie coming in and going, you can just press that button and it'll do it. And I'll go, what? And then that's
feel
mostly
like-
what it is.
I feel like maybe we should have an episode just with Ernie and Cam.
Yeah, no, you should.
honestly
Yeah,
could.
you should. We should not be here. It should be
Yeah.
those guys. Because I don't.
Okay, next episode
right,
we'll
yeah,
do Ernie
all
and Cam. So William asks, why did you choose Premiere over Final Cut or Avid Media Composer?
Final Cut kind of shit the bed. Am I allowed to say
Shots
that?
fired.
Yeah, I don't
Said
know.
it.
Yeah, Final Cut stopped updating for
Yeah.
a while, and so it really wasn't a professional option.
Hey, but I learned on Final Cut
I
7.
did too. No, I learned on Final Cut 7
So
too.
here's a related
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Was it easy to switch and start using
Absolutely.
Premiere?
It was,
Yeah.
yeah. It made it. That's a big reason why I started using Premiere when I stopped using
You can
Final
map
Cut.
your
Yeah.
keyboard, right? I
Yeah.
mean, for one thing.
Well, I started cutting. I learned how to cut on Final Cut, and then I learned Avid to go do jobs. And then
Yeah.
when Premiere came up, I was like, oh, this is
Like,
I
this
know.
is
I already know how to
easy.
do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah.
And you know, the other big thing was actually sound for us.
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah. The sound.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
it's,
sound
about
goes
that.
in there. Well,
The sound, I just find the sound on Premiere to be a lot more fluid, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
it gives you more options, it gives you more,
you don't have to render.
you don't have to
constantly.
render constantly, just kind of a lot of the like tools, whether it's like the reverb tools or the EQing, it all feels very, I don't know, it just feels kind of second nature.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's,
innate.
it's
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of like fluid, gets out of
Yeah.
your
Yeah, where I'm using like Avid, I've used Avid in the past, and it hasn't given me that same flexibility.
Yeah,
to
it's
work
hard
with the
to.
sound.
I find it difficult to sound design as complexly as I would like to in Avid.
And is it because you've got to render out and turn it over to
Yeah,
Pro
it's. I mean, I don't know if you do
Yeah.
this. Even when I'm playing back for Hero and Donald, I can turn stuff up and down without changing the playback. If I hear something's
sure.
too loud, I can turn it down and without interrupting.
Yeah,
it,
and
you
it's
know?
fine.
And that sort of thing is like a real time saver later.
Yeah.
Instead of taking notes of all the shit that's too loud or
sure.
too quiet, I just do it on the
Yeah,
floor.
that's definitely cool.
And so
Big
much
time
of, like,
saver.
I mean, even with the music, like so much of it's diegetic and like
Right.
building the tone of the world, and that's very, you know, easy to do. And
Yeah, we need it to sound like it's coming from the corner of a room or from a car passing by or
And-
whatever. And we've
And you can just do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've gotten really good at it. I mean, we've done it
Cool.
for 2 seasons, you know.
Yeah.
So like we
Yeah.
know our chick,
tricks
we come in and
tips,
take
yeah.
pictures of each other's like,
Like
settings.
EQ
and
settings.
go, like,
Really?
Hey, what was your
Yeah,
EQ
no.
setting on that room?
You guys
yeah,
should just
yeah.
screen record.
yeah, you know,
yeah.
just have a live feed into each other's bands.
Yeah,
so
totally.
See what you're doing.
Okay, so I have this is an interesting question from Peter, which is, how did you edit the invisible car scene?
Oh, that was really
Which,
easy.
this was you.
That was me. That was really easy. We turned the footage over to an FX house. That, no, I'm being glib, but that's. I mean, it was a thing where we looked at it. We selected our takes, and because it was so complicated, and there were so I don't even know. It's like
was there a car in there originally?
no, there wasn't a car. He was
was
on.
like a
he was
go-kart,
on like
like
a
dolly,
rig. Yeah,
kind
it
of.
looked like a go kart. But there were. I think there were like
Yeah.
20 or 30 shots that are composited
Okay.
together because each person being hit by the car is a stunt
kind of
person
like
on
flying.
wires.
Oh, wow.
So it was a
Yeah.
colossal amount of footage that
Yeah.
we sort of temped out, sort of selected out, passed it off.
To your guy.
Actually, you know what? That's the one thing that he didn't do. That went to like
Yeah.
a real actual FX house.
Oh, okay.
That's probably the most complicated effect on the
Yeah,
show
that was
by far.
Yeah, and so it was just the process of getting notes, going
Yeah.
back and going, no, we shouldn't, you know.
Yeah.
So
You
so,
know what's funny is I'll still see comments online like
Like,
the
I
editor
know,
screwed
I
up,
know.
they
We
missed
gotta-
the car.
There's, I
They
mean, I
forgot to
shouldn't
put a car in
I
there.
maybe shouldn't say this, but we get QC notes from people that watch it. And
Really?
I still have a screen grab of.
yeah.
We got an email from somebody that said, "We noticed that in scene 31, the car is missing. Is that intentional or should you know?"
And
or
you're like, it's Atlanta.
that's like I love
It's
it. No,
totally
I love it.
intentional.
Yeah. But
Totally.
yeah, I got. I mean, there's no better.
Yeah.
I had very little to do with that.
Well,
I
thank
wish
you.
there was a cool story.
Thank you for being
But yeah,
honest.
that's the sort of thing you pass off.
Okay, so Michael has a question, which is, what is your process for color grading in Premiere? Do you guys do color grading at all, or do you hand that over?
We don't do color grading.
Yeah.
Do Cam and Ernie put LUTs on it? Do
We
they
get a
go-
lot from the
Oh,
footage,
okay.
but we
Yeah.
I mean, unless something is screwy, we
Yeah.
And what's the show shot on?
the Alexa
Alexa.
Mira.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
And always.
And then Ricky, our colorist Ricky, who does just incredible work. They color, they put actual film grain on it.
Oh,
and all
cool.
that, yeah.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when
There was actually one episode, the kids episode that just aired, Fubu.
oh yeah,
That was shot on Arri Alexa, but then they went out to film on it,
yeah.
and then
Why
They put it to
digitized
film and
the
Why
digitized
did they
the
do
film
that?
to make it look
to make it look like
the 90s.
old dated
Interesting.
90s.
Yeah, to really
just
get
kind of
that look.
soften the,
Yeah.
the look.
So
of
they
it.
went out to film and then came back
And
to
then
digital.
captured it
Digitize
back
the
to
film.
Oh
digital,
wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty unusual.
It was really unusual.
Yeah.
There's a lot of choices.
That was
A
a
lot of
choice.
That was a
choices.
choice. A lot of
choice.
Choices. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Xavier asks, and I'll ask each of you separately, and I'll start with you. What made you get into the field of film editing in the first place?
Well, when I was learning how to do stuff and make my own stuff, that was the thing that I really liked doing the most. And
You'd been shooting and
yeah,
doing
just making my own
photography, or-
stuff. No, I mean it's not. I talk about the stuff that I made was not very good, but it was just, you'd learn how to shoot, direct, that sort of thing. But then I really liked putting it together.
Yeah.
And so I started focusing on that. And I think just by way of getting better at that, then people said, hey, I need an editor. And okay,
Yeah,
It's like,
I know
I
how
can
to
do
do
this for a
that.
living? Sure, yeah, I can do
Yeah.
that. And so I just sort of stuck with it and then got better at it as I went.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, it's my favorite part of the process for sure. As someone
Cool.
who's had very limited experience with all of the parts.
But like you love it, right?
I do, yeah, I
it's
really
really
do.
your
Yeah.
jam.
Yeah, I do.
And then what about you, Isaac? So you went to film school.
Yeah,
Did you go kind of knowing that maybe editorial was where you were gonna go?
No. I mean, it was really identical to Kyle. It just kind of, it was the glove that fit.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I started out shooting, I kind of wanted to be a DP when I first went.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I shot a few like B-cam on music videos, and it was awful.
Yeah.
I was a terrible
Yeah. Oh,
DP.
yeah. Also, I hate, like, production's the worst.
Post production.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah,
You don't have to get up at 4
Post-production,
a.m.
like being alone in a room with
Yeah.
a coffee beside
Yeah.
me. And,
Right, like
I
you
get
may-
there at 10.
more my
People
speed.
leave me alone.
You may have
Yeah.
some long days, but like
Right.
it's not a room full of people all
Right.
freaking out because
Yeah.
like they're not getting what they
Yeah.
want.
Well, I'll say in Atlanta, we don't even work long days.
Which is
it's
great.
kinda true,
Yeah.
Which is even more surprising given that your turnaround on the episodes is like pretty quick,
Yeah,
right?
well, I mean, I found
They
that.
don't have many days to shoot it though. Either.
Yeah, no, I
Like,
mean, they shoot it in
it's all
4.5
made very quickly.
days, so it's
Yeah.
it's not like we're getting a ton of stuff. Also,
Right.
I've just found maybe this is just maybe I've just had weird luck, but it seems that the less amount of time that you sweat stuff, the
Yeah.
better it comes out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you find that it kind of just
Yeah.
forces you to make decisions and
Absolutely.
like move
Yeah.
forward?
I mean,
Yeah.
you also have creative visions between Donald and Hero that are so in sync
Yeah.
that you look at the footage and you know right away, like, this
Where
is what
they're
they
going.
intended.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people don't come in and start second guessing what they did. There's not,
Right.
people aren't all that. I've worked on some real nightmare shows where it's just coming from a place of you have so many cooks in the kitchen, people don't know what they're making. There's all these. This show, it's just we did this because this is what we want, and we go, oh yeah, okay, that's what you.
Right, you get it.
Yeah, oh, I get it. Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
What if we tried this? Oh
That's-
yeah, that's great, and then the show's done.
That's pretty unique,
Yes,
right? To have
yeah.
that kind of like kind of tacit understanding
Oh, for sure.
of like what they were
But I think
going
that's
for.
why the show's so good is because it's
Yeah.
so clear what they're
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And they definitely like create a lot of playroom for themselves too.
Oh yeah.
on set.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Like you can tell they're having fun on set in the footage.
Yeah,
all the
what I
times.
love about it is that you can tell while they're writing the shows and conceiving
Yeah.
of it, they're having a lot of fun. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what if we tried this?
And then you
Like,
have Keith, who's just like doing like anything.
Who plays Darius?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Keith Stanfield.
but
And,
like the Teddy Perkins episode,
Oh.
it's like, well, how about we use Donald Glover not being Donald Glover and like.
Oh, that was actually Teddy
know.
Perkins.
Yeah,
That's really Teddy
No,
Perkins. That's not
It's
Donald.
Teddy Perkins.
It's Teddy
Yeah,
Perkins.
that's Teddy
But,
Perkins.
like-
there's a lot of stuff online about Donald and
Teddy?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Didn't,
I mean, I
did,
was.
did Teddy write that one? Wasn't he in the credits? Teddy
Yeah, he's
Perkins?
as
He
himself.
acted in it.
Yeah.
I think they
acted
just
in it.
credited
just
him
as
as himself.
himself.
But
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I wasn't on set, so I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any evidence that it's not Teddy Perkins.
Do you guys ever see Donald and Hero in person, like while you're editing? I mean, after
yeah.
they're done shooting, do they come?
Oh, yeah, Hero's there every
definitely.
day.
Hero's there every day.
Okay,
yeah. And
okay.
Donald's there quite a bit too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's there when he's got a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, when
Yeah.
when he's around, he's there.
And I mean,
for
he's
sure.
also a director. Like Donald directed two of them.
Yeah, he
Right.
comes in, does
So
his
he
director's
does the
cuts,
director's
like
cuts.
But
Right.
Hero is sort of our point man, like
Yeah.
day to day. If something tricky comes up, we have a direct line to Donald.
Does
but-
he edit at all, Hero, or does he?
Does he know how to
he ever,
edit? Does he
like,
know how to edit? I don't even know.
It's tenuous. He kind of does.
He does?
He kind of does. Yeah.
Well, he
I've
started
tried
as
to
like a-
show him
wait-
before, and it
Oh,
never
really?
really. Yeah.
Wait, didn't he start as like a VFX guy? So he kind of
Yeah, he knows
right?
After Effects.
Oh, he does?
He knows After Effects really well. Like he would do a lot of After Effects on the music videos we used to do.
Oh,
He would do
cool.
most.
Oh,
of
is that
his
right?
own,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, not most, but a lot of his own After Effects.
He
stuff.
temps out a lot of our title cards.
Yeah.
Which are always very clever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's kind of his
funny.
jam.
My
It's like-
favorite is the Barbershop poster.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that was
That's
yeah,
another one where we all kind of like will throw ideas.
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
too.
Because especially this season, because it became
Because
a
we,
thing.
like, where
we
can
wanted
we
to
hide
hide
it?
it as much as
Yeah.
possible.
You guys did a great
Yeah,
job on
thanks,
those. Those were
yeah.
really fun
Just
to
sort of-
like see where it was going to pop
Yeah.
up.
yeah, just kind of trolling the audience a little bit.
Let me know if you find the one in the last episode.
Okay, I'll be watching. Okay,
Yeah, right.
I got
like-
another question, and this is slightly technical. What kind of computers are you guys working on?
Oh.
What kind of workstations
both have
do you
We
use?
just have we just
right?
work on
IMAX.
IMAX, just
Yeah.
dual IMAX.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have
The trash cans or?
no,
No, just
the IMAX, the desktop.
Oh,
IMAX.
okay.
Yeah, desktop.
And we work off a little server that I think
all the footage is shared on.
didn't
Oh, the.
Ernie's friend made like a server.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's
Like
what
a
we use.
DIY server?
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
it's just that's just a trash can that's sitting in our lunch room.
And that's just where all the media
yeah,
goes.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just sits there.
That's
Did you
hilarious.
see that room?
I
don't know.
did. Yeah.
It's pretty scary. The whole show just lives on a computer
Yeah.
next to our lunch
Right, there's
table.
there's
which
like
is also a ping pong table.
yeah,
we
which
should
converts
oh,
to a ping pong
oh, I
table.
Yeah.
missed that part. I remember
Yeah.
like there's the fridge full of LaCroix and
Right.
like the lunch area.
No, that
Yeah.
the show was almost destroyed a couple times by
Yeah.
aggressive
So I-
ping
And really
pong.
heated ping pong.
So I
Yeah.
guess the message here is it was not like some crazy multi-$1,000 like tens of thousands
no.
of dollars setup. Like
No,
you
no,
guys had
No.
IMAX, you had a server
It's
where you're
literally,
Yeah.
it's literally
Yeah.
anyone
It's all
could
our
do
own
it at their
equipment,
house.
too.
yeah, which is like
our stuff.
super
Yeah, it's our stuff.
approachable.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
brought your own machines.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
We cut on our own
Okay,
stuff.
wow.
It's literally like as DIY as you can
Yeah, exactly.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So you can do it at home. You can
Right.
you can edit Atlanta with whatever is in your house right now.
As long as you get your own weird footage.
Yeah,
you
you just have to have Donald and Hero
Yeah.
shoot for you.
Yeah,
and then it's easy,
yeah. All right, one more question.
Now we're on the jobs.
What's the best tip either of you could give a new Premiere Pro editor?
I mean, the best tip I could give any editor is just to keep making
Just
stuff.
do it, yeah.
Honestly, like
keep
it's
editing.
it's it's a process where you're finding out what makes you good as an editor. You're finding out your tips and tricks the more you do it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're finding good collaborators to work with too, and
Yeah.
good people. It's just
Yeah, it's
honestly
so
making stuff.
when we were talking before we went live, and you guys were just kind of talking about like people and I'm working with this guy or I'm working with this woman. It's a pretty close knit community, and it's a small
for sure.
world, and people travel around in the same circles. So it seems
Yeah.
like the more work you do, the more work you get,
That's
the
true.
more people
That's
you
true.
know, right?
The better you get at doing it. you
Yeah,
know, so
yeah.
It's a hard skill to intellectualize. You have to just do it.
Yeah.
It's the only way to get better
It's
at it.
the hands-on practice
Yeah.
of editing,
Right.
where you're going to learn stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, what are you guys looking forward to as far as like next projects, or maybe not sitting in a dark room for 12 hours
No,
a
I
day?
know it.
Yeah, no,
You're
we're
working-
both,
Season
we're
3
both
of
on
Atlanta.
shows now.
Yeah, we're working.
Yeah, you
now.
both have different
We have
projects
a couple things
now.
lined up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, looking forward to maybe a season 3 of Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean,
Knock
as
on
far as I
wood,
know.
yeah.
I mean,
Hopefully, the
for
dream
sure.
team again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems
Yeah.
like-
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
I
imagine
can't
it would be
imagine
anyone
we would
different.
make it without
Yeah.
the people that we make it with.
Yeah, no, it's a really good vibe that you guys
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
is
for
it weird when so you have this sort of great community in your area when you're not working with them, like when you go off and you're all working on separate is it like weird?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Totally.
And we're still all on like
We all
text
text
chains together.
and we
yeah.
hang out and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
Yeah.
not like,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
working with other people. is
Working with other
always-
people. Other
Yeah.
people
Well, you were
suck.
saying
You have to remember that there's a lot, like there's a lot of lines that we cross in Atlanta that I can't do on other shows.
so you
Yeah,
were saying that like
exactly.
your new team is real new and you haven't met these people and you're like, oh hello.
Yeah,
I'm
no, it's very
Kyle.
formal.
Yeah.
We're on Atlanta, you just
Exactly.
walk in and go like, "What's up, dipshit?" like that sort of
Stop
thing.
calling me dipshit, Kyle.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question. I'm not sure who it's for, so I'll ask each of you. And if you don't have an answer, that's cool.
about hair.
I know. I'm sorry about the
When did you
preamble.
lose your hair?
I'll take that one, Kyle.
How did you pitch your work for your first TV series editing job? So is this your first TV series, or had you done any TV series before?
This was my very first TV series. I'd done some doc stuff. I did a episode of Chef's Table,
Oh.
which is on Netflix, and I'd done a few other like longer form doc programs, and it really, I kind of owe Hero for this one.
Yeah,
Like,
he, like,
Hero was like,
you've
yeah,
known each other
but
and-
Hero was just like, this is the dude I'm comfortable with, and
Cool.
so I'd like to work with him. And it was his first TV show also.
Oh wow, because so he'd done a ton of videos. Had he
Right.
done any
We'd done
other
a ton of videos
short,
together.
Short
We did a
form?
short,
That short film.
we did the
yeah.
short film with
Yeah.
Donald clapping
Yeah.
for the wrong reasons, and a bunch of commercials and projects like that. But
but not a series.
not a series.
Yeah.
And it all kind of trickles downhill to Donald in a way too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Donald was like, I need to have Hero, and Hero was like, I need to have Isaac. And,
Cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
And now you're on the scene.
I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just on the periphery. Going like that.
No,
thanks for letting
see
me be a
now
part of it.
everyone's
Yeah.
like, we got to have Kyle.
Yeah,
We got to bring
yeah.
Kyle
Right.
back. was this your first TV show?
No, I'd done a handful of things before this.
So how did you? I guess the question is kind of like, how did you pitch yourself as an editor for a TV show?
I didn't. Caitlin got hired on the show, and then Hero was looking. Do you know any editors? And she said, "Oh, call this guy." And Hero and he called me, and we talked for like an hour just about movies. We didn't even talk about, because I think a lot of editing has to do with just your personality and like not a lot to do with actual editing.
Right, and like your
you spend so much
sensibility.
time together.
And just who you want to be in the trenches
Yeah,
with,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Hero's in the room with us all day, every day.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I think there are much better editors out there than me, but I think he just likes, I'm easy to be around.
Yeah.
I'm an easy hang.
exactly.
So,
and you get the show and you get where he wants to take it.
So I think we just had a conversation on the phone, and we didn't talk about editing or the show or anything. And he was just like, "Oh yeah, I like this guy."
Yeah.
I mean, I met him in person for the first time when he came in to watch cuts.
Which kind of gets back to the point you just made, which is if you keep working and you keep meeting more people,
Right.
it really is
Yeah.
like who knows you and who's familiar
right.
with you and who says, "Oh, I'm totally just going to hire Isaac. Like he's my man. I'm
Right.
bringing him on the show."
Yeah, and I think
Only Hero says that.
yeah, only I was gonna say, I think that's unique to this show. I
Yeah.
don't think there are a lot of shows.
Yeah.
I mean, there are shows where I've had to meet like network people who you'd ever see again.
Yeah.
And you go, what was that about?
You know, that actually raises a question I had for you guys. So, how is working with effects?
Oh,
they
they're
seem,
the worst.
I mean,
No, they're really. I mean, they're great.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine a better.
It's.
I think this.
They're trusting.
Yeah, they let them. I mean, I don't know what it's like when they're
Yeah.
writing and that sort of thing, but I think this season in 11 episodes we got what?
5-6 notes.
Did we even get that
if
many?
that.
Total?
Yeah.
Total,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And they're good notes.
Yeah.
They're not like
That's
they go-
amazing.
We go,
Like-
oh yeah, no, that makes sense. They're right.
that's like
And they're
the
always
dream.
coming from like the right place too.
Yeah.
Like they want to make the best show possible.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's pretty.
I think you can look at all of their stuff and just see that they
Yeah.
They trust the
back
creators.
people. They go, we like this guy, we like what he does.
Yeah.
Let's just give him money to do it and then back off.
Yeah.
And they're not going to come in and give Donald a bunch of notes because they want to see what.
you imagine?
Yeah. Oh my God. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they want to see what Donald and Hero do. So
Yeah.
what's the point?
That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's a
so
great
they-
kind of show
They
to
leave
work
us alone.
on.
It's great.
Okay, so Leo has a question. On a Donald Glover directed episode, how does Donald work with you during the edit? Like, is he in there in the editing
sure.
bay?
He comes
Like,
in,
what,
he does his director's cut.
what kind of notes does he have for you while you're cutting? Like,
He has very specific notes.
Yeah.
Like,
He's
yeah.
easy to work with because he knows what he wants, but he knows what he wants. So
especially if something's like because a lot of his episodes are very, they're rooted in experiences he's had
Yeah.
or people he's known or an idea that he has. And so he's like, that's what you're doing is good, but here's the way like I remember it or I picture it or how, like here's the music that I would have heard back
yeah,
then. Like,
because they're personal for him.
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
there was something I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but there was something on the Barbershop episode that I thought we should cut. And he people like this. People like he know you know what I mean.
He's like, the
Yeah.
Like
internet will love this.
he's so in tune with
He knows
Yeah.
they're
With
gonna
what
like it.
it's not even but it's not coming from a place of like catering to the audience. It's coming from a place of him going like, no, I know that I realize like how special this is.
Yeah.
Like even if it doesn't quite feel right, maybe in the macro,
He
just
gets
trust
it.
me.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of that.
But he's also not
Interesting.
precious
wish-
though. He's like open.
Oh yeah,
to,
no,
like,
for sure. Yeah, I wish I
Yeah.
could remember what the thing was. But yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very open. He's really
Yeah,
collaborative.
like a good
Yeah.
collaborator.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, you
Yeah.
show them. You never. It can be tough in a bay sometimes showing people things for the first time, especially when they don't really realize that it's a collaborative sort of medium. So you get notes from real nitwits that say like, "This needs a lot of work," and you go like, "Yeah, I know." Like,
It's a first cut.
yeah,
Right,
it's like it's not
right.
like an
Yeah.
actor does one take of something and then
Yeah.
go,
Right.
"Oh my god," it's like
For
yeah,
sure.
you work on it. So yeah, I mean, Donald's really great at understanding that like. Oh yeah, no, so it frees you up to show him really wild stuff
Yeah.
and him go, yeah, great.
So I know the final episode is cut and it's probably been in the can for a while now.
Yeah.
Did you guys all watch it together? Like once it was done? Like do you ever sit down and together
Yeah.
watch
Oh, yeah.
the
Oh,
finished
we all-
episode?
all
I
of
mean,
us,
we
all
watch
of
him
our-
as we go along, like
Yeah, yeah.
every step of the process.
Oh, cool.
We'll when we finish a cut, he'll come in and say, "Hey, I finished my cut of 201," and we
Yeah.
all get together and post
Oh,
and sit
cool.
there and watch it together and talk about it, and even before like
Even before Hero or
Donald will see it.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Wow.
Just
we
like
probably
us
shouldn't
in the
say
back.
that for like
Yeah,
the guild is going to come.
We're fired.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, but we we talk about, did this make sense? Did that make sense? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think you
Yeah.
need this. Yeah, I don't understand why Earn did that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And then yeah,
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like as you're editing, because it's collaborative and because Premiere is pretty flexible, it's easy for you to be pretty fluid and like, oh, well, let's try this option or let's try this other option or like this one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
when,
definitely.
when you were talking about choices, does that also mean that maybe you're giving some alternative scenes in the first cut that you
Yeah.
do?
We do. From
I
time
do.
to time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? Is the Laddie thing still in the finale?
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
some.
That was a choice. You can't-
There's
yeah.
a really wild choice in the finale that I love.
But,
Yeah, you know,
you'll give some alternative
Yeah,
cuts?
yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
easy. Yeah, it's
sometimes.
definitely.
I
I
mean-
think just because of the way that.
Yeah, but also because of the shortness of the schedule, we
Right.
don't have a lot of time to
Right.
do.
Yeah, play with it.
yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think anything that we do is also. It's easy to undo.
Yeah,
Right.
You do a thing
exactly.
and they go, okay, hold on. You
Yeah.
know, you go, okay, well, let's do.
Yeah,
the,
we can-
We'll do the
Yeah.
correct version of it. It's not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we don't stress about that.
Yeah, you can
And a
get
lot
in
of
there
a
and
lot of
fix it.
times, like I'll like if there is a scene that maybe I don't feel like we need per se, we'll like cut the scene out, but we'll have an alternate cut of the scene
Right.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Right. Yeah.
in our back pocket, so we can show it to Hero or Donald and be
Yeah.
like, oh, here's the scene that we left out of this cut. Here's why.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
pretty
do
common.
that.
It's
Yeah.
pretty common to take a scene that's maybe not working 100% and really cut it down
Yeah.
and leave the scene. And that's something that we'll do in our cuts. I'll say, I cut this scene down to 5 lines. I can show you.
I'll show you the scripted
I'll show you the
version of
scripted version, and they'll watch it and go, "Oh yeah, we don't. That's
Yeah.
just going on
Like, you're right.
forever."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty common.
It's, I think one of the most fascinating things about editing that I think a lot of people don't really realize is how much artistry and say you guys have into, as editors, how scenes flow and which takes you put together and how they're put together. There's a lot of craft and thought and artistry there. You're a little bit kind of unsung in that role. I mean, obviously, obviously directors and the actors and,
We don't even get windows.
Yeah.
That's right. You don't even, you get like black cloth
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the window.
yeah,
That's how appreciated you
No,
are.
but I appreciate. And I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think.
But I'm biased.
Well, I think that's probably what the most interesting thing to me is about editing is that it really is this it's kind of scientific.
Yeah.
It's very artistic, and it is really
Yeah.
collaborative. You're not just doing it. The director's not just
Right.
doing it. The writers aren't just doing it. Like it all has.
I think that's why it's hard to talk about too, is because it is such sort of
Yeah, it's very cerebral. Like,
but it's also a craft. You also
Yeah.
Right.
need to know how to work a
Right,
thing.
how to
so it's
manipulate
hard
what
to-
you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, this is going to make it sound like it's. I don't want to overdo it, but when you hear athletes sort of talk about being able to get into the zone and sort of forget the technique, that's
Yeah.
sort of when I think
Yeah.
we're doing our
When
best
you're
work.
just-
but it's also
yeah.
it's years of practice that have allowed you. to
Exactly
figure the
right.
technique,
It's like
you know?
making, it's
It's
cutting
like making
tons
it
of
second
garbage,
nature.
Yeah.
and then getting good stuff. And
Yeah.
going like, oh, I know, I can.
Like
do
all
this.
that stuff from 10 years ago that
Yeah,
you'll never
that no
want to
one
watch
does.
again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you need that.
So we'll take our last question because we're just about out of time. It's related to what we were just talking about. Jake asks, how do you stay away from overanalyzing your cuts?
Oh, that happens.
So why
Yeah,
don't
we don't. The answer
don't know
is
if
we
we
don't
do stay away from
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. It's a learned process to be able to like go home at the end of the day
like,
and
let
kind
it
of
sit.
like give it some space. And,
Yeah.
and also just trust the process that like it'll eventually work itself out once you start collaborating with with Hero and Donald and people. But yeah, it's
I think it's learning to trust your instincts too. It's when
Yeah.
you're cutting something and you know it's not working and you don't know why it's
Yeah.
not working, it's good to go not so much to analyze it, but go what is it about this that I can't make
Yeah.
work?
Uh-huh.
And so a lot of it is just trying stuff
Yeah.
and just throwing stuff out there and just I can't speak for everyone,
Yeah.
but for me it's just doing a bunch of wacky stuff because good ideas come from bad ideas, right?
Right.
So if you do a bunch of weird stuff, sometimes you go, oh yeah,
Like,
no,
that's it.
that's
Yeah.
and it's just, but you know it instinctually. It's not an intellect at all.
Right.
It's kind of like it's in some ways it's like Like I think of like fighting the riptide if you're out in the ocean. If you
Yeah,
try
yeah,
to
that's
swim
true,
too
yeah.
hard,
It's not
Right.
going to
if
work.
something's not working and you try to like bang your head against the wall and make it work, it usually just gets worse.
Yeah.
A lot of the times.
Also, like we should emphasize, we get really extraordinary footage.
Yeah.
On this show,
Yeah.
I don't think you can't make great
Right.
stuff from not good.
and the
footage.
DP
Right.
Christians like
Yeah, our
this world.
Christian, our DP is just.
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah, Christian and Hero Donald, they're just.
Yeah, the
I
whole
don't
team.
know. They're so insane.
And it goes
It's
back to the
crazy.
writers before that too.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I am super excited to watch the finale. I'm super excited. I hope there's a season 3 because I will tune in. I will binge watch it.
There's
So
two.
too.
And I have mouths.
Otherwise,
Oh
I-
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also, like I said,
job.
for episode 2, we'll bring back the assistant editors.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
bring back
You
Ernie
definitely
and
should.
Kim.
Yeah, bring them
we'll
to
talk
talk
to
to
those
them.
guys
Yeah,
because that would be pretty interesting.
They know a lot more than we do.
But I want to thank
better looking,
both
too.
of you for coming out and talking with us tonight, and I want to thank everybody on the live stream for coming with your questions. You guys had some really good questions, and this will be posted on Facebook after we're done, so you can go back and rewatch it or share it with your friends if you missed it. Kyle, thank you.
Thanks.
Isaac, thank you. Facebook, thanks, and that's a wrap.